So this is an episode that is in one of the classes I taught. It was a group of sixth graders while I'm abroad in Colombia, and I was in a private school. These kids are fairly fluent in English. I wouldn't say they're perfect as far as grammar or the level of conversation that sixth graders in the United States have, but their English level is quite good, and they could do fairly well. So we had a specific topic where we asked about the difference between Anchor, between Apple and other phones. And I know, like globally, Apple, it seems to be a mark of sort of wealth, a status symbol. So you have to have money if you have an iPhone. For instance, I've taught in a public school and a private school here, and whenever people see I have an iPhone, whether it's an iPhone 5, the little tiny one, an iPhone 6, a little bit bigger, any of them, any iPhone, people have sort of this idea or association that iPhones equal status. And if you have an iPhone, that means that you have money, or you've done something where you want to be in a specific place. Now, it's interesting because I also own an Android phone. My bias is towards Apple phones, but that's because of the length of time and history and its basic ease of operation, which is sort of insulting and also smart because you want your phone just to be a phone. It's interesting because in the United States, the iPhone is freaking normal. I remember when the first iPhone came out, it was a couple $100s, and it was somebody who had one, and it's a beautiful, beautiful creation. And the person, we just assumed, hey man, this person paid hundreds of dollars for a phone, and like in the initial stages, you're like, oh wow, an iPhone. But then in the later stages, you're just like, you really spent that much on a phone that's a computer. And with time, you saw that some of the limitations it has that's very different than a computer. But more or less, I wanted to have a conversation that was essentially a cultural exchange with my students about Apple and specifically the iPhone. So I hope you enjoy it. If their English is a little choppy, understand that they speak Spanish all the time, and the equivalent would be my Spanish is choppy to them. So enjoy yourself, and I hope if you have feedback, you throw it on there and let me know.
How do you know Apple?
I know Apple because when I was 6 years old, my mom bought me an iPad that was very old.
Why do you like Apple?
I like Apple because they have a lot of technologies, their designs are pretty good, and they are every day innovating more.
How do you think Apple will be in the future?
I think Apple in the future will be like they will create new cell phones with new technologies, like no more notch or things like that. They will put holograms or things like that.
So really quick, so it's still recording. It keeps recording. All right, so I'm gonna interject in here. So the first thing is when we talk about Apple products. You asked, so how were you introduced? 9.
So now a student that likes Samsung talks.
Right. So there's some people who do like Apple, and there's some people who don't. So who doesn't like Apple? Okay, you really don't like Apple. So 2 questions. The first question is, what was your first? You've had an Apple product before, right? No, you've never had Apple before. So why don't you like Apple if you never had it before?
Because I know how is it. I know it's very expensive.
Oh, okay.
Descontinúan los celulares.
Right? So why do you like? Which one? You like Samsung? Yes. And why do you like that more than Apple?
Okay, first, I like Motorola and Samsung and some others more than Apple because first, Apple is very expensive, and second, because it cannot connect with some other devices like like Samsung and Motorola.
Okay, so what are some differences? What's something that's better that Samsung does that Apple doesn't do? What do you think? Or you can sit down.
Yes.
It has different cables.
10. 10. 10. Who's 10?
Probably it has better camera, but yeah. Do you ever in the future want to buy an iPhone? No.
So,
Why? Because I don't like it. Because all the things that I have previously said to you. Okay.
okay, so for example, have you heard before that sometimes Apple products look like Samsung products, right? Like their phone sometimes looks the same. Why do you think they do that?
Probably because that happened with Huawei. Yeah. P20 with iPhone X. I think because they like Apple, the Huawei people, they like Apple, or what? The design of Apple. Yeah, and they put it in a cell phone that had a lower price.
Okay, so for example, the Samsung Galaxy, right? You can leave it there. It can hold it. You have a Galaxy, right? You have a Galaxy? You have a Moto? Okay, and so how do you compare the Moto to an iPhone? Is it similar? Is it better? Is it worse?
It's very different in some aspects. First, it doesn't have a button. Yes, it has a thing to put the fingerprint. Fingerprint.
Okay.
The operative system is very different. It has some different apps. It has Google Play instead of App Store. Okay, that's it.
Do you think that Google makes better applications and games than Apple does?
No, the same.
The same? Do you think the experience of playing the game or using the application is different on your phone than an iPhone?
Yes, it's very different because of the buttons that some Apples have. It only has a button, one button, and in Motorola or Samsung Motorola it doesn't have buttons, and in Samsung it has a button plus some other things.
Okay, that's cool. So who liked Apple? I forget who liked Apple. Did anybody like Apple?
I like Apple. Like Samsung.
Cool. So do you like them the same or different?
The same.
I like the same.
And so what do you...
But I like more Samsung than Apple.
Okay, and why?
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Because it's better. Because in my opinion, it's most, ¿cómo se dice? Menos caro. Less expensive, cheaper, and no, ¿cómo dicen? Descontinúan celulares. Eso es que...
So if Apple was the same price as Samsung, would you get Apple?
I don't know. I compared the goods and bads, and I decide Apple or Samsung.
Okay, so if Apple and Samsung were the same price, you all would, then would it be easier or more difficult to choose?
This was more difficult to choose because it's so similar.
So you said you like Apple, and so because you like
And
Apple,
I like Samsung.
I know. So you said you like Apple. What about Apple do you like?
technology that they have and what they do with the phone, the new things that they. I don't know how to say.
No, it's fine. So, you said you like Samsung too, yes?
Yeah, I think that if Apple would be more cheaper, I think that Samsung will be better.
Okay. And so, do you think that price is the biggest problem that people have with Apple? Is just it costs too much?
Yes.
Okay. So, how much is it? Is Apple a lot more or just a little bit more and that's enough? It's a lot more. And is it a lot more and you get the same thing?
Sometimes in Samsung you get better things.
So with Samsung it costs less and you can get better.
Yeah.
And why do you think Samsung can make something for less and make it better than Apple?
I don't know.
It's interesting because then my question is why is it okay for Apple to charge so much if what they make is not as good as Samsung sometimes? That's confusing, yeah?
Yeah.
So why do you think people buy it even though it costs more?
Because Apple is more beautiful. No, because some people think that Apple is better because of the prices. And Miguel has an iPhone 8.
Okay, so you think the people believe the quality is better for Apple because it costs more?
Yeah.
And so that means they think Samsung has low quality because it costs less.
Social class.
Social class, it's very good. That sounds like a socialist class. Yeah. So in the end, if you know that Apple's going to make new things, so Apple went from a little phone, they had a button, then they had a touch button, now they have the face scan. What do you think Face ID. So what do you think Apple will do next? And what do you think Samsung will do next? What are other companies going to do next?
The next step of Samsung is that the creator of Samsung or the manager of Samsung presents a new cell phone or tablet that is
That new phone is so expensive because it's not that good as they expect.
Okay.
what? Okay.
I want to say, I think that Apple and Samsung are going to put a new product, but not like a tablet, a cell phone, or a computer. I think it is going to be another thing.
Okay, so not like a watch or a phone, just something totally new.
A different thing.
TV? Somebody said hologram.
A car. I said.
Holograms, yeah.
A car.
Or a car, that would be cool.
I think that it will be like a TV, but like in the cinema, 3 dimension.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah. Anything? No. Nothing? Okay, so because this is where we finish, what we're going to do is you'll get the link for the podcast, and then if you want to, you can add your own questions. You can respond to the podcast, and you go from there. So I'm going to post this, and then